The design criteria for this thing were maddening. The cheapest, best, lightest, strongest, low maintenance eye candy that could be owner built with minimal skills with off the shelf components. The idea came from my son giving me a book on tiny homes about a year and a half ago, and a friend of mine who picks up coats and saves them all year and gives them to the homeless people. Um, so I tried to tackle the idea of what is the best affordable housing possible. Okay, and my background is as a boat builder, the furniture and pretty much everything. And so I took a totally logical approach to it, and some of the rules were that it had to be the least expensive, lightest, best, regardless of my biases. That was a struggle. Um, when I saw Pad Tiny Homes Bunkhouse about a year ago, I think they're based out of Portland, Oregon. It changed everything. He put the insulation 2-inch foam board on the outside and exposed the framing on the inside. That eliminated the need for an interior wall and allowed the floor to extend all the way out to where uh, on his you can go to 8 feet wide on the interior, maximum space, and at the same time far lighter and far cheaper. As a boat builder, I've been playing around with a off-the-grid um, liveaboard trailable boat for several years, and the three, all of it kind of combined. So I took the what's called monocue construction, and it's the same way that you would build a plywood boat, which I've got a 15-footer outside that's 35 years old and has been hauled on trailers, fished and chops and seas, and it's just as solid as the day it was built. Very light, very strong. They do that by taking and running longitudinal stringers. A conventional house, you have the studs up the wall. On the outside of this one will be 16-foot long, one piece that will, three of them, one will go down the center of the wall, and one split the difference between the upper and lower. And when that's done, the largest span of unsupported plywood is 22 and a half inches. And it is glued and screwed from both sides, creating a grid or, yes, a basket weave, if you would, which at that point you have to destroy the wall. It will not come undone. It becomes extremely rigid. Everything was put together with Titebond. There's no insulation inside. There's no fumes. There's no reason to have any. There are no hidden spaces for critters to live or for mold at all. Okay. You can add any amount of framing to the outside to strengthen it to any level. I did weight calculations based on 4-foot by 8-foot sections of wall, and I came out with, I think I'm around 85 pounds per 4-foot by 8-foot square wall finished, and I think around $116 per 4-foot by 8-foot section of wall, and the weight's around 80 some pounds, maybe close to 90 by the time I'm done. This comes in about half the weight of a traditional tiny house. It is several times stronger, cheaper, and I think it's better. The plumbing and electrical will be run exposed in conduit neatly below the counters and so forth. So if you ever have an emergency, you have to get to them, repair them or fix them, just like in a boat. You can get to everything. When I went looking at trailers, what I found was they're very expensive for tiny houses. You're talking $4,500, something like that, for a 16-foot trailer. But car carriers are all over the place, and they can start at $2,000 for a 16-footer new. It made sense that you save that money. And so this was the width at the bottom goes inside any car carrier. It's designed like a boat to be lifted and moved. Unlike other tiny houses, you can't do that with no, you couldn't do that with tiny houses these days. It's designed to be taken off and set on the ground, change trailers, or maintained. I kept the aerodynamics as low as I could, so this thing should be a breeze to tow. The 2-inch insulation gives a R value of R13. The floor is filled solid, and then the cracks fill with foam, liquid foam, spray foam. A solid 3.5 inch. The sound of them when you step on them is very quiet, and they feel very solid foam up under them. The bottom is sealed with epoxy. The top plywood is staggered over a strap so that no water can get in. And the crack is going to be filled that runs the seams with epoxy mixed with, of all things, Day-Glo powder. If someone should choose to keep the floor, it helps give a reference point similar to holly used in the sole of boats when you're walking around the dark. The Gypsy tiny wagons. The Gypsies were the original those. And there's much to learn from them. The colors, the art, they didn't just survive, they thrived. And one of the things they did was they put this raised bunk bed in the very back. And that adds tremendous storage up under it. It's like adding another 4 foot to the length. I'm leaving this one open. Technically speaking, you could have another bedroom back there. But I would put a Gypsy raised bed in it, and that could be single bed, double, queen. And this leaves room for a bathroom to the right if one wants. But what a lot of people do is keep a watering trough shower with curtain and everything under the raised bed, and as well as a composting toilet. But it would be very easy to put one in this area. You can't really put a toilet in because there's 3 different kinds. There's conventional commodes, and there's RV type, and there's composting, and you don't know what the user's going to do. The only fixed inside where this blue tape is on both sides is a 2-foot wall that goes from the ceiling joist that'll be up there. This is a temporary foam to keep this rain out. But those come down, and those that has double studs there. In boat building, that would be called a king frame. This will be as stiff almost as the end walls, so that the span is only 8 feet instead of 16 feet. Across the top, the ceiling will be the same as the walls. This beam here is 2 laminated, glued together 2x4, 16 foot long, will be made 3 inches square. It goes up here, and the roof rafters fall on it, and then collar ties go across. So it's I tried to minimize the number of pieces throughout the entire process. So far I'm looking at it, and I'm like, yeah, it's going to weigh 1 ton. Finished business. The outside is going to be covered with Galvalume. I picked Galvalume because it is the cheapest, lightest, strongest, therefore best. The front wall is going to be finished, glassed up, bright all the way to wood. Up here, I'm framing in a header for this that I have to make up yet. I'll add additional framing to the exterior side of that as needed to stiffen. Up for a door, I'm going with the tiny house, 2 foot wide, but I want to do a double door, an upper and lower separate. For the door, this is Okumi African cedar that I used on canoe building, in particular with building the canoe Lily White, my best one. And it is marine grade, Lloyd's of London, and I will use an 1.5-inch solid foam inside of yet to be known framing